Welcome to News 8, your news channel. After World War II, the United States, a patriot for democracy, wanted to contain the spread of communism. The USSR retaliated against NATO to create their own treaty, the Warsaw Pact. This rivalry led to the Cold War and the arms race that threatened the globe. And now, as this pseudo-war comes to an end, we will be reviewing this suspenseful time in history.
Host Emily Decker. Where's my coffee? Thank you. It's September 8th, 1991, broadcasting live from New York City. The Cold War has come to an end, and the time of tension between the USSR and the United States is finished. The relationship between the two powers started to waver between 1947 and 1945. But by 1947, the Cold War was visible, including the newly found rivalry and competition called the arms race. Now, let's see what reporter Elena has to say in Washington, D.C.
Good afternoon. This is Elena Bowling reporting from Washington, D.C. Today I'm here at our country's capital. It is cloudy with a chance of rain. So, during the Cold War, the United States and the Soviet Union were engaged in a nuclear arms race. Both spent billions and billions of dollars stockpiling huge amounts of nuclear war weapons. Near the end of the Cold War, the Soviet Union was spending around 27% of its gross income on military expenses. This was crippling their economy, and that helped bring an end to the Cold War. Now, back to Emily.
Wow, that's interesting. Thank God it's over. Now, over to Inaya in Russia, getting us live updates from Moscow.
The stress of the arms race has destroyed the Soviet Union's economy, and they're in massive financial trouble. The USSR also had been testing nuclear bombs, which resulted in the infamous Cuban Missile Crisis. This, of course, led to the beginning of the Cold War and only increased international tension. That's all I've got for now, but I'll keep you updated. Back to Emily in the studio.
Well, tensions were very high here too. The Cold War was heightened by the arms race between the Soviets and the US. Every nation knew of the US's atomic bomb, but the Soviets knew they needed their own if and when the time came. By 1949, the USSR had tested their own atomic bomb. President Truman, who wanted to have the upper hand, gave the okay to begin research on the next thermonuclear bomb in 1950. But by only 1953, only 1 year after the US developed their own new hydrogen bomb, the Soviets began testing their own. These super weapons were thousands of times more powerful than the previous atomic bomb. This was what would soon become known as the arms race.
Now, a moment from our sponsors, Bunkers.
Did you feel unsafe during the nuclear arms race? Well, introducing this new bomb shelter. First, you get in, and now you are safe and protected.
Are you a spy? If so, come down to Decker's Disguises, where you can be anything you want to be, like a tourist, or a witch maybe. So spooky. Or even good old jolly Saint Nick. Welcome back, and now over to Inaya in Moscow, Russia.
Yes, indeed, Emily. It was a dangerous time for us all. Here joining me is Sophia, who wishes to tell her story.
Thank you for having me. It was a very scary situation, and we were very, very poor. We had no money, but we wished to go to America in hopes of asylum. My parents sacrificed so much for us, but we were rejected because they thought we were spies, like the Rosenbergs.
Ethel and Julius Rosenberg were an American-born married couple who were executed for spying for the Soviet Union. In 1953, they were executed for espionage. They were the only ones executed because they stayed silent during their trial by invoking the Fifth Amendment right and Julius was suspected of being the ringleader. The others who involved included Ethel's brother and his wife, who in the end betrayed them. The brother, who was able to obtain secret information because of his highly classified job, changed his statement after their opening argument. He went from stating that his own wife was an accomplice to his own sister, Ethel. This led to both Julius and Ethel being convicted of the crime. Many vocalized their opinion that the death penalty was too harsh, especially since Ethel's conviction had reasonable doubt. Many wanted Eisenhower to appeal the conviction through clemency. These voices included famous people like Pope Pius XII and Pablo Picasso. Before the execution, Dwight D. Eisenhower responded by saying, quote, "These two individuals have been tried and convicted of a most serious crime against the people of the United States. They have been found guilty of conspiring with the intent and reason to believe that it would be to the advantage of a foreign power, to deliver to the agents of that foreign power certain highly secretive atomic information relating to the national defense of the United States. The nature of the crime of which they had been found guilty involved in delivering, but trial of the entire nation, and could easily result in the death of many, many thousands of innocent citizens." End quote. They were put to death by electric chair, leaving their two boys as orphans. Ironically, their new adoptive father had been famous for his song, "Strange Fruit," which sang about the unjust killings of innocent men during slavery, just like Ethel. The Rosenberg trials put all Americans on edge and made them quite hostile towards all Soviets, like Sophia.
Yes, Emily. Just 38 years ago, here in our nation's capital, a newly elected Dwight E. Eisenhower appointed John Fisher Dulles as Secretary of State. Dulles was famously quoted threatening the USSR, that if they ever advanced on the US, that they would, quote, "retaliate instantly by means and places of our own choosing." Glad a guy like him is never going to be elected our president. Dulles' aggressive threat only heightened the Cold War, the tensions, and led to Americans to be even more determined to bring down communism.
Yes, well, Elena, the Soviets were making great advances as well from the race. In August 1957, the USSR announced that their newly developed Intercontinental Ballistics Missile, or ICBM for short. This new rocket had the capability of traveling 3,500 miles in a single run. By October 4th, they launched the first unmanned satellite above Earth's atmosphere. The US had felt like it was falling behind and poured millions into the new arms race, the space race. The US and the Soviets had been neck and neck until the US finally won the upper hand and put the first man on the moon. Thankfully, we didn't have a cold space war, and the US and USSR began working together within space by 1975, and the races of the century began to fade away.
Thank you. And now, in present-day 1991, as the Cold War comes to an end because of the breakup of the Soviet Union, Russia and its new foreign policies will take over as a global superpower, and the United States and Russia once again will become allies.